Welcome to another episode of the House Huddle Podcast. Here are your hosts, Rob Schwartz and Justin Onayemi, two Bears fans who decided talking into a microphone was better than shouting at their television.
All right, welcome into the House Huddle Podcast. I believe we are on episode 15. This is right after the Bears lost to the New York Giants. We talked last week about how the Bears didn't win the game against Houston. They basically just didn't lose. And I kind of feel the opposite about this game. I felt like they had the opportunities to win, and they just threw them away. Like, it was bad. But as always, Rob Schwartz, and we are joined with my co-host here, as always, Justin Onayemi. Justin, how's it going?
Yeah, great to be on the podcast. Wasn't great to watch this game. It was a lot of themes are starting to develop, and part of what we're going to do today is break down the game. But with a 17-game schedule, 4 games in, you're almost a quarter of the way through. I think it's time to look for some of these themes that we're seeing. A lot of them are disturbing, and talking about that moving forward. So real quick, just before we start, I did do a short during the week to talk about the Tua injury. And I think even in today's game, we see from the officials or the neurologists on the field, just a little more caution maybe in getting guys checked. Late in the game, Tyrod Taylor already in as a backup, took a shot to the head, and they made him get checked. But we could talk about 15 other examples of where they're still not doing enough. You got J.J. Watt playing after he got his heart restarted during the week.
Yeah, I mean, he put out on Twitter, like it's a proud thing to be back, and I get it, and there probably isn't any issues that he would have from my non-medical expertise. I do believe, like, when you have a situation with your heart arrhythmia being fixed, they do say, like, you're okay to return to things.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, give yourself a week, like, give yourself some time. And
but there's not a culture for that where you're allowed to take a week.
Right.
You're seen as soft. You're seen as, not a team player, that type of thing. And that is exactly what we need to break, I feel.
I briefly address the Tua thing in the short that I did, which, by the way, I'm going to try to do an all 22 breakdown every week. I'm going to put a podcast. I'm going to put a tweet out on Twitter with a few things, guys, that maybe I think are interesting to maybe look at in this all 22 from this game. And I'd like for everyone to tweet out what they want to see, possibly not Trenton Gill.
If you put out a poll, Rob, do expect that I may come in with a write-in, even though, like, for instance, I'm just throwing this out there. I would love to see an all 22 of Velus Jones on offense in today's game.
Yeah.
It will be short. I don't think you'll have to evaluate very much, if anything at all.
That'll be the shortest all 22 breakdown I think I can do.
You said you might do the punter, so, I mean, that's a pretty
true.
Short one.
Although he saw the field probably more or just as much as Velus did.
We're going to break down the game, but I think one thing that made it kind of awkward, but also humorous, was that both teams were kind of the same. Like, run heavy, not really too much faith in anything related to the passing game, and depend on the defense and depend on lucky breaks or muffed punts, which both teams actually got.
Yes.
Well, theirs wasn't really a muffed punt.
No.
Bears created that turnover, but pretty ugly to watch from an offensive standpoint.
Sure. But going back to the injury thing, we want to make sure that it's important that, not everyone agrees with us, but to me, it's very important to myself as far as being a football fan. Like, NFL safety, player safety should be more prevalent in this game. And I don't think that it is. I think it's gotten better over the years, but I think they've taken steps and then they've kind of taken steps back. And I think we saw that with the Tua situation. I think honestly, the Giants cornerback, and I'm blanking on the player's name. They had announced that he had just had surgery. And sure, I'm sure he was cleared to go back, but I mean, one bad hit and he's out for the rest of the game. So, I mean, what are we trying to tell, not just the players, but like my kids want to play football, and I'm not. I'll tell you right now, my middle son has the build to be an NFL football player. Okay,
Absolutely.
He is 8 years old. He is an inch and a half shorter than his 10-year-old brother. He already weighs in over 100 pounds. The kid is just massive. They're projecting him to be over 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", somewhere in that range. He has an NFL build. I won't let him play football. I just won't. I love this game. I absolutely love the sport of football. I played it as a kid. It's a tough game. I broke my femur. Was in traction for 3 weeks in a leg cast, a full leg cast. Let me tell you, it's not easy to go to the bathroom in a full leg cast, okay? I had a full leg cast on for another 8 weeks. Like, it was a very tough injury, and my mom wouldn't let me play anymore. I resent her a little bit for that.
Uh-oh.
And now, as I've gotten older, I should say I resented her a little bit for that, right?
Okay.
Now, as I've gotten older and I see what this game has to offer from an injury standpoint, I understand protecting your kids.
Yeah. I mean, I never thought I would ever play. It was just, even back growing up in the 80s, 90s, like I already thought, well, that's way too violent of a sport. And I played many other sports, and you can definitely get hurt playing basketball, playing soccer. In my short, I talk about my experience with concussion, which happened in soccer. But just the volume of injuries that are in this game does make it tough. And that's kind of what I tried to say in the podcast short. So if you want to go check that out, please do at @bearfan_Justin O, and then also through Hallis Huddle. But it's scary. And I don't know. I like you said, I love watching the game. I love breaking it down here on the Hallis Huddle podcast. But some things are very tough to get past. That's how that Tua situation played out for me on Thursday night. So I guess let's talk about the game, though. What are your huge takeaways right off the bat, Rob?
So here's my huge takeaway. Justin Fields looked better, okay, when he had the opportunity to throw the ball. I still saw him leaving the pocket a couple times more than what I felt like he should. The offense is limited by the fact that they cannot pass protect with 5 guys, even 6.
Herbert, on a few, did not look good in pass protection, which is something I always keep saying. Yeah. Hey, Montgomery can still do that at a higher level. He obviously wasn't available. We're perfectly fine with that. Yeah. He's injured. He should be resting up. But you saw a lack of pass protection on blitzing, which the Giants do a lot of. And when you have a quarterback in Fields who maybe lacks confidence or just is taking too much time to make reads, I think the absolute right thing to do is put pressure on him, and they did a whole bunch of that. But when he made some good throws, it made us say, hey, where is this?
Right.
And coming into the game, I think I have this stat right. Please, fact check me if you want. Bears had a total of 32 drives coming into the game. I don't know if I told you this, so I'm going to quiz you.
No, I'm curious.
How many of their 32 drives had they completed 2 or more passes on a drive coming into today's game?
32, 2 or more passes.
Sorry, 2 or more completions.
Okay, 2 or more completions. Because you said complete 2 or more passes.
Got it.
I'm going to go, and only because I'm down on the team right now and I've seen, what we've seen so far, I'm going to be a little bit pessimistic. I'm going to go with 15.
No. 4 times they've done that.
No.
Coming into the game.
Are you kidding me?
4 times.
Not even half?
Well, look at today. I think his final numbers, I could look it up in a second. I think he had 5 completions. Is that true or no?
I think that was what it was at some point in the game.
But I only counted 2 drives that he did that he had 2 completions.
And then they did go 3 and out a lot in the second half with a punt.
Yeah. So let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. He was 11 for 22. There's your 50% completion. Okay. That's too low.
Way too low.
I'd have to go back and see how many drives. I know there were 2 today for sure, minimum, where they completed 2 passes on the same drive.
Yeah. That's
not acceptable. That shows that when you're in 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, that you just aren't going to be able to get it done.
Well, no, because they're not. So there was some video evidence that came out, and I know one of the writers at Bear Goggles On had written about this for us, where it made it definitely seem like Luke Getsy and Matt Eberflus are trusting Justin Fields, the way that they talked to them after that Houston game, the way they talked to him after he threw the interception, and Luke Getsy said, look, I need you back. I'm going to go right back to you. Actions speak louder than words. And we talked about it last week. I felt like there wasn't enough there to show that they were trusting in Justin Fields. We saw it at the end of the half when, they had a little over a minute left,
All
3
three
timeouts,
timeouts,
and they barely did anything with the ball because they didn't push the ball down the field. I will give Getsy credit, a very small amount of credit. They did open up the playbook, as he said, a little bit to start this game, and we saw it. We saw it with the deep balls to Mooney. We saw it even just like the crossing routes over the middle where he hit Mooney open in the middle of the zone. Like, he just sat down in the zone, he was open. But he's not getting the time to make those types of throws. And then when you see him drop back, and I sit here and I critique him, I'm so tired of him running on that 3rd and long play where he almost gets sacked, ends up getting the first down, taking a hit that he probably shouldn't have taken, just because, like you and I say, he tends to not slide the way he should slide. But you look at they did almost like an all-22 play, like shot on the camera for that play, and they had 3 guys going in routes, only 3, and they were all covered, like completely covered.
I'm not sure if I'm thinking the same play as you. And I remember in the offseason it came out that like Fields was saying, or I don't know if it came from Fields, but basically implying that Nagy never had them do like a scramble drill.
Oh, yes.
And there's a play, I think it was in the second half, he releases out and Pettis kind of looks like he has a step on his guy.
Plays.
Okay, different play. But I'm like, make that throw.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's all sorts of inner things we can look at, but the big picture is there's no offense. I mean, They come in with a kicker you just signed for today. Thank goodness he goes 4 for 4.
Yeah.
Because that's your only points.
Yeah, and when we say there's no offense, let me back up. The running game has been working. The running game did not work enough today. And I again blame play calling on that. Why are you running Khalil Herbert in the A and B gaps when you clearly have 3 weeks of film, and I know it's only 3 weeks? The Giants struggle at containing the edge.
Right. And we ran many to the edge with great success.
Yes.
And then on a key, like 3rd and 2, you run straight up the middle and get stuffed.
The play calling, it looks fantastic at times. And I will say that the play, maybe not the play calling, but the play scheme overall is better than what we saw from Matt Nagy. We're not seeing, we've talked about this, we're not seeing guys at the same level running the same routes, basically duplicating each other.
Right.
But at the same time, and I do again blame the offensive line, which ESPN win rate, you pay attention to that. It's only a 2.5 second hold that they have to hold for. Anything after that doesn't count for that blocking win rate, whether it's against the run or the pass. They are not able to protect without keeping a tight end in, keeping the running back in. They cannot hold it with 5.
Well, and I think there was a particular player that did stand out to me on the O-line in a negative way. Do you know who I'm going to say?
Oh, I know who you're going to say.
Well, let's test this out. On the count of 3, we're both going to say who we think we're talking about.
Okay.
Lucas Patrick. Very good. You see, and now...
By the way, we did not talk about this pre.
No, we did not. That was organic,
yes.
But I think that's also how obvious it was.
Oh, it was bad.
And this whole time, the narrative that we've been pushing is once his hand gets right, he's part of your best 5. He's at center. Jenkins looks good at right guard.
Yep.
Now today, Whitehair goes out.
Yeah, and it's a knee injury.
Oh, that's tough to hear. But Whitehair goes out, so now it's like, well, Jenkins is locked in at right guard.
Yep.
Patrick goes to left, and I get it. It's not easy to just go from the right to the left. There's a lot that is in that, but he's your veteran.
Yep.
And he's getting destroyed.
He was getting destroyed on the right.
He was.
Before he even had to switch.
He was. So I think that's something we're going to talk about later in the show. But what I want to say about play calling, I'm critical of it too, But this team looks like the type of team where Getsy would have to call a perfect game for them to even really have a chance. Because there's just so many times where you're in 3rd and, let's say, 7+, which you try not to be in. And if you're calling that perfect game, you're probably not in it very often, where I just know we aren't going to convert. And occasionally we do because Fields has some amazing escape ability and turns nothing into something. We like that he has that part of his game. We're just missing the crisp completions that I see so many other teams are able to convert. And I don't know what it is. I really don't.
And we saw some key drops again. And this is what's frustrating is I am big on completion percentage. I always talk to the fact that if my quarterback does not see more than 60% completion percentage, he had a really shitty day. And I'm going to say shitty because I'm in a bad mood. It doesn't sound like it right now, but I'm in a bad mood.
We're gonna use our explicit rating today, but I actually think we used it when you talked about the whole leg cast and using the bathroom.
It was rough.
My gosh!
As a young kid,
think of
with
the
crutches,
viewers, think of the listeners. All right,
in a public bathroom.
Oh, yikes! Sorry to throw you off your.
No, I mean it's frustrating because we knew that this team was not going to be great. And then they started, and here's what's frustrating because I had them.
You wanted to be the only one in America with the 3-1 Bears.
Starting out 3-1.
I had 2-2, not the right 2-2,
but it's like we knew this was going to happen. So I don't know why I get so emotional because they don't have the talent that they need, like the talent discrepancy that we've talked about when we look at games. And when we did our game by game projection, it's just like, okay, you see Miami way before we even saw Tua play the way that he was playing this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
We saw the talent that they had, and our response was the Bears just aren't good enough. The Dallas Cowboys, they're seeing it with Cooper Rush as their quarterback because he has guys to throw to like CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. Darnell Mooney finally showed up today, and I think he was in his own head. That's why you saw him after the game, the Houston game, catching balls off the jug machine, right? It's a mental thing with him. He's had a couple drops that he wants back, obviously. We saw the pass to Dante Pettis today. That should have been a catch.
Could have been a catch. I don't know about should have.
I think it should have.
That was a back shoulder throw that wasn't enough to the back shoulder. The defender did get his hand kind of in there and honestly might have hit him in the face mask. I don't know.
Sure.
Could have been a catch. You're saying should have been.
I don't know if it hit him in the face mask. But when you look at the top quarterbacks in the league, and I'm not going to say that wide receivers make quarterbacks, but most of them have a wide receiver one. A guy who can go up and make a catch like that. The Chicago Bears don't have that. And Darnell Mooney is not that guy either. He's not that type of receiver.
Well, so we talked last week about not wanting to compare Fields to other quarterbacks. Let's just see what Fields can be when he's at his best. But the Bears don't even need a top quarterback in the league with this team. No. They need a middle-of-the-road game manager type.
We've been saying that for years.
And the run game they have and the defense they have. And that's no one likes to hear that, especially of a guy you traded up and took at, 13th pick or 11th, I'm sorry. You don't want to necessarily see a game manager, but the Bears flat out said, we're going to call the games to win the games.
Yep.
It's not all about his development, although winning games, I think, helps you develop.
Sure.
Even though we've won, the Bears have won some games with some really ugly Justin Fields stat lines, but there was some good things to see, but there's still a lot that, a lot out there that you just wish there was more continuity. Because some of these incompletions, it was like late throws. The one to Wesco, he threw only 2 yards and the guy dropped it.
Yeah, and I don't think he thought. I mean, let's be honest. Fields has continuously run in those situations, chooses to run. I want to say he's maybe thrown it 3-4 times this year total, went on the run like that. He wasn't expecting the ball, and you could tell he wasn't expecting the ball.
Right, and one, he rolls out, draws the defender, puts it over him, almost, I think, overthrows the guy, but it was caught by, that one actually was, I think, to Wesco.
It was to Wesco, yeah, where he got the extension.
Well, what was so weird in this game, too, and I do think we need to mention this before we move on to maybe some of our other segments for the day, but in the first half, the Bears' defense is just getting destroyed by play-action rollouts from Daniel Jones. And apparently, if you listen to the broadcast, he's particularly good at hiding the ball. Maybe. I don't know. But it's like getting burned, no contain on the outside.
Yeah.
And then throughout the game, they got better, although they gave up, one to Tyrod Taylor, similar on an option.
Right.
But then you wanted to see the Bears offense do that. And then you did see them, actually, that play to Wesco being an example where they do their play-action rollout. And you're forced to say, this is a mobile quarterback. He can burn us with his feet. And as soon as you come up to stop that, the pass should be open.
Right.
That's what we want to see, just not seeing it nearly enough.
The other issue, though, is Brian Dable, by the way. I mentioned it before. It was the coach that I wanted. And I got to give credit to Mike Kafka, their offensive coordinator, because he is the one calling plays, not Dable. the way that they were running the game, the way that they were play calling in the first half was phenomenal. And the Chicago Bears answered it. They did. I mean, you saw Jaquan Brisker, like, he settled in. He was one of the guys who was continuously getting burnt on containment. The one guy who I really am frustrated with had a decent first week, and I haven't seen him have a good game since, is Al-Quadin Muhammad, and he was constantly getting caught up in non-containment. Even Robert Quinn was getting caught up in non-containment. He settled down a little bit a couple times and did it too. Roquan Smith a couple times was able to do it too, but they shut that down for the most part in the second half, right?
I thought overall much better second half from the defense
Yes.
with that particular adjustment.
Correct. My issue, though, is you want to see the Chicago Bears do it, but the way that, again, I think the play scheme is correct. I think that the plays that they have in place in their playbook is correct. It's a matter of when they're calling the plays and the order that they're calling them in. When you're telling me that they have 4 drives out of 32 where they're completing 2 passes, that to me is a frustrating thing to hear. And it dictates to me also when you see the Giants constantly in Justin Fields' face when he tries to do those rollouts to the naked side, right? Like, constantly. I mean, even the play with the Wesco pass, like, there was a guy in his face. He just outran him.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, let's just point something out here. Combine Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor, who did have to come in due to injury for Jones. They combined for 9 for 16 for 82 yards. So we weren't seeing, them break any passing records either.
no.
We knew what type of game it was going to be. And several times in my notes, I'm writing, okay, big drive here for the Bears. This is the one. You got to move the ball. You got to get points. Punt, exactly. And oftentimes 3 and out. So one of those, minute 27 in the third quarter, 1st and 10 at the 24, 3 and out, nothing going. That's actually right when Tyrod Taylor came in, which again, I'm like, okay, there are backup quarterbacks in. Maybe we can make something happen here. We don't.
How about when he goes out? Oh, you think Jones can't even throw a pass? He's lining up his receiver. They're going to Wildcat. You think they'd stop them then?
Was that a rule situation? Like, why did they bring Daniel Jones back in to go wide out with a bum ankle? Like, at that point, you might as well bring in another receiver and just run the Wildcat.
I'm not really sure. I don't think it's a rule, right?
Well, you have to designate a certain number of your quarterbacks, and like you have to put an emerge. I don't know. I think there's something there, but that was weird.
I'm gonna have to look that one up. I'm
Okay.
not 100% sure, but it didn't matter because they got the ball back. They did what they needed to do. Got the ball back.
Huge muff punt there.
Still couldn't score. Still couldn't move the ball enough.
Yeah,
And then a punt that just.
that was a bad way to like clinch the loss. I mean,
It was like the opposite of what happened in the Houston game. You had the big, almost pick 6 by Roquan Smith to end the game. Now you had a muff punt. And granted, they were winning the game at that time, right? Or no, that gave them the opportunity to kick the field goal to win the game.
Go ahead. Sorry.
The hope was that with still enough time, Bayless was going to get, the ball. Had a huge, the
Tons of
punter
space.
outkicked his coverage.
Right.
And Bayless was clearly looking downfield, trying to find his lanes. But the first point of any punt is to catch the damn football.
Well, I'm not saying Bayless listens to the Hallis Huddle. I hope he does. I want everyone out there listening.
I'm going to tweet him. Be like, hey, Bayless, listen up.
But, this was his first game. He's a rookie, first NFL game. And already last week we're talking about, well, hopefully he can be in there and be a difference maker on special teams and a difference maker on offense. And if you're depending that much on a rookie, that's probably a problem. And then we see it. It's a problem, and he didn't obviously change the game in a positive way. He changed it in a very negative way. Weird muff too, because he had so much space.
Yeah.
Typically I feel like they muff when there's just people around them and that kind of thing.
Right. When you're almost like looking, and if you're watching the YouTube podcast when this is up, you can actually see me like my hand gestures. You're looking up to catch the ball. In this case, he was actually kind of catching it sideways. Like he wasn't using his body to catch the ball. He was more just using his hands, and it just went right through.
And then kind of booted towards them too.
Bounced forward, and then when he tried to get it again, like a player's foot kind of got in the way, and then boop, and it just didn't matter.
So, Well, we didn't get into like details on the Bears, more big picture frustrations, but I think we did enough to kind of talk about the reason, some of the reasons behind the unfortunate loss that brings them to 2-2. So I think right now we'll take a break. We're going to try a new segment.
Yep.
I'll explain it on the other side here, but it's basically Two Truths and a Lie, which is a familiar game probably to the listeners, but with a Chicago Bears twist. So join us for that, and then another round of What the to end off the show. All right.
Down.
Welcome back to the Hallis Huddle. I'm one of your co-hosts, Justin Oniemi, here with Rob Schwarz, and we are going to try a new segment here called Two Truths and a Lie. Basically, both in what we saw in today's game, but also taking into account what we've seen through 4 games, approximately a fourth of the way through the season, we are going to make 3 statements, 2 of which we believe are true, 1 which we think might be a lie, and Rob and I don't necessarily know what the other guy might say. So we might disagree in the classification, but we're just kind of looking at, at this point in the season, some trends, whether we think they're going to stick around or perhaps are lies, and then we'll check back in around halfway through the season, see if if those trends are continuing. So, Rob, why don't you start us off? You're going to give us 3 statements, and then you and I will discuss whether those are truths or lies.
All right, let me pull these up here real quick. All right, so I'm going to give my 3 statements. I'm going to go nice and slow so everyone can clearly pay attention and then form their own opinion before Justin weighs in here.
Okay.
All right, so 2 truths and a lie. Eddie Jackson is back, but really never left. Okay, I think everyone knows that I'm an Eddie Jackson supporter. I'm probably one of his biggest fans, so I think most people know where that one's going, but we'll
Starting
see.
off with a T-ball one, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Bears know who their best 5 offensive linemen are. Okay? The Bears coaching staff knows who their best 5 offensive linemen are. All right? And Justin Fields is not the problem with the Bears offense.
Okay. Whew. All right. Well, you already tipped it off with the Eddie Jackson.
I did.
You never left the Eddie Jackson fan club, and certainly through 4 games, I believe he's got 3 picks, a forced fumble.
Yep.
Today's game was the first time in his career with an interception where they lost the game. So I think it's 12-1. But so I'm pretty convinced that's a truth that you're telling, and we can go into that. Hopefully I'm right, but we can talk about that briefly after this. You said that the Bears coaching staff knows who their best 5 O-line are. Whew. If they do, they have kept it a secret from everyone else and refused to show, because I don't think that could possibly be true. And then your last one was Justin Fields is not the issue with the Bears offense. All right, so I'm going to say that your 2 truths are Eddie Jackson is back but never really left, and that Justin Fields is not the problem.
Yeah, you got it.
All right, but we got to talk about the Justin Fields one then, because I'm sure not all of Chicago agrees with that.
I'm sure not all of Chicago agrees with that.
Why do you think that's true? And then hopefully when we check back in midway in the season, that'll show that you were right, that this was a true statement.
So again, I am constantly on that 60% or higher completion percentage, and that's not everything. And he has not shown that once yet this year. Okay, so that's frustrating to me. But he has constantly had key drops by certain players, which definitely hurts his stats. And as I've said, the scheme in itself is right. What I'm frustrated with, and this is where I don't blame Justin Fields for it, is they are not able to put the plays in an order to make it work. They're too predictable. They're just way too predictable. Like, especially in the red zone. I even think the announcers said something about it early in the game about how often they've been in the red zone and how often they've ran the damn football. I'm fine with running the ball. It's great. It's been working. They were second in the league in rushing. That's probably not the case anymore after today. But it works. Okay? I understand the running game works. But you have to build off of the running game and make your passing game work. And the way that they're using the play action is wrong. It's like math, and like if your order of operations aren't correct,
wow,
you get the wrong outcome. right?
This is an educational podcast too. We got helping our listeners in math as well. So I would agree with nearly everything you said there. I don't know. You want to guess how many rushing yards the Bears had today?
Today? I mean, they probably got close to 85.
Oh, you're way off. You're forgetting. I think you're forgetting. How many do you think Justin Fields had?
You're right. Okay, I'm not counting Justin.
No, but
Fields.
those do count.
Okay.
It counts just the same. He converted key
Yes.
third downs with his feet.
Yes.
Fields alone, 52 rushing yards today. It's okay. We're good. We're good.
The house is coming down.
So Fields on his own had 52 rushing yards as a part of 149 for the Bears. So that could have kept them in they're probably still a top 5 rushing team.
Right. They probably
so here's the thing, though. If you're that good running the ball, then play action should work. RPO could work. But when you can only run the ball, that becomes a problem. But I also think it's not all on Fields. I mean, that's not exactly how you phrased it. I think he takes some of the blame in this. And I'm actually, one of my truths in the lie involves Justin Fields, so I'm giving it away, I guess.
No, don't tip your hat.
Okay, I won't tip it.
We'll discuss that.
All right. Should we talk about the O-line?
All right, the O-line. So if you listen to the House Huddle short that I did this week, I had a really fun time breaking down the right guard position. It's very rare. I played offensive line as growing up. Like, that should be the position I'm most interested in, but it's not, because I hated that position. I'm gonna tell you, I hated it. But that's kind of what happens when you're like the fat kid. You just get put into the offensive line. And I was a fat kid growing up, so very unathletic too, by the way.
You weren't pulling? They weren't pulling you?
No, I was not a pulling guard at all. Let me tell you. But what's frustrating is, like, Tevin Jenkins just looks so much better on game film. So much better. And then this last week, and I talked about it, I gave my best Allen Iverson impression. Practice apparently matters, and it mattered again this week because we saw Lucas Patrick starting over Tevin Jenkins in the right guard spot.
Do we again think that was the rationale?
It wasn't dictated, but it has to.
Well, let's say something here, though. I believe, and this is something I believe about in football, but you could take this in pretty much every team sport. To me, it's not all that important who starts, but it's who plays.
Sure.
But what was more disturbing when you broke down the film is that Patrick was nearly double the snaps of Jenkins. And again, so first drive, last drive, second drive, I don't care who's out there when it matters.
Sure.
And last week it was Patrick. I mean, it was a W, but again, we didn't say it was because of what the Bears were doing that they won that game. And then today their hand was forced due to injury. But I'm going to go down the line and say Braxton Jones, they probably think is locked in at left tackle.
Yeah.
And it's more because I haven't seen him get burned frequently. I couldn't honestly tell you what his good play, bad play rate is, but it's been decent.
Might be a guy I have to look at. I know for a fact he had one bad play today off the top of my head.
Okay, so maybe an all 22 on Braxton Jones is coming up. I don't know. That's up for the viewers and listeners to decide. So we could say maybe they're confident with him at left tackle. That's one of your 5.
Yeah.
Mustafa at center has been forced on them.
Yeah, no,
we keep thinking it's Patrick, but now with the White hair injury.
Well, and we're not
taking injuries out.
I'm going to take injuries out.
Okay, let's take injuries out. So White hair would have been their left guard of their top 5.
White hair has to be your left guard.
So the left side of their line, they're locked in. Everything from the center to the right, though.
Yeah, Larry Borum hasn't looked good either. Let me tell you, he hasn't. I mean, I said it before the season started. I said it from watching tape last year. He looks fantastic at times, and then at times he looks really bad.
He's a second-year player that was a 5th-round pick, right?
Yeah.
So most teams aren't depending on a 5th-round pick in his second year to be a key position. And for the Bears, apparently he's there. What happened to these veterans that they signed that should be able to come in?
Well, and now you have Riley Reif, right? Some people are speculating that he might look to trade him, but with the White hair injury, do you feel like you can? I don't know.
But we said take injuries out of this.
Sure.
He couldn't enter the top 5 over Borum.
I mean, I personally would probably put him there. I mean, he's never been an elite tackle either. Let's get that out there. He's a middle of the group, and maybe they're willing to live with the mistakes of their youth. We've heard Matt Eberflus talk about the fact that he's okay with his young players, learning and growing.
Okay.
So maybe they're looking big picture, and I can agree with it. I'm going to agree with the fact that Larry Borum would be a better big picture right tackle. than Riley Reef. But at the same time, I sure as hell hope that they're looking at other options in 2023.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also thinking as much as they are trying to roll out and get outside of the tackles, maybe you don't feel like right tackle is that crucial position, but Fields is under pressure quite frequently from both sides where he needs to step up.
And we talked about it. They cannot block with just 5 guys. If it's 5-on-4, they still can't seem to block. If it's 6-on-7, they can't seem to block. I mean, 6-on-6, they can't seem to block.
Right.
6-on-5, they can't seem to block. Like, I get if your numbers don't match up, a guy's going to come through.
Right.
And that's on Justin Fields. And I brought this up too. Is he allowed to audible? Like, they continuously kept blitzing. Like, is he allowed to change a route? Like,
well, that's the thing. I don't think it's always about coming out of the play. And I don't have the details here, but there was a play where it was 3rd down, they get blitzed. And I just think you need to have a hot route.
Yes.
Like, you need to adjust your route if the blitz is coming from your side. And it was a short distance. Like, I want to say it was like 3rd and 3.
Yes. I think I know exactly which down.
And Komet, it ended up he escaped the blitz, delaying the inevitable of an incomplete pass. But to me, blitz is coming. Quick, you only need 3 yards. You get it to a quick receiver who's adjusting. I don't know if that's not how they've schemed things, but if not, that's irresponsible.
Now, Luke Getsy made a perfect play call at one point in this game. Justin Fields was getting blitzed, took a sack. I don't know the exact down and distance. I want to say it was roughly 3rd and 20. They ran a screen to Khalil Herbert.
Yes. Converted.
It converted. It was beautiful. I haven't seen a screen like that since the Lovie Smith era. I mean, it was fantastic what we saw. Got the first down. Then the next play, they turned the ball over.
Oh, that's right. That was the fumble on Fields. That was actually, I think, one of the drives where I said, "Hey, 2 completions in one drive."
Oh, nice.
And then they celebrated by turning it over on the very next play.
By the way, that was the Braxton Jones
negative play. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, it showed up and it mattered. So, that's what happens when you do get burned. But I overall have been satisfied with his play, but certainly the Bears don't know they're 5.
Nope.
And now with the Whitehair injury, that makes even one more question to answer. So they weren't looking good prior to that. They're looking worse now.
I'll go real quick on the Eddie Jackson thing so we can get to Justin's two truths and a lie. But again, I've spoken enough about Eddie Jackson. The guy's got 3 interceptions in 4 games. Everyone wants to say, where is he good after he got his bag of money? Let me tell you something. He was not being put in the position to succeed, and I don't want to hear, but he wasn't always playing in the box. He was playing free safety. Guess what? I don't want to hear it because I've listened to certain people who I respect, like Matt Bowen, talk about how much Eddie Jackson does for that defense, putting guys in position to where they need to be. And yes, there are times where he gets caught out of position and he makes bad angles. He doesn't make bad tackles. He takes bad angles. Okay, that's his biggest issue. His tackling at times, he doesn't rat. He always constantly goes for the ball. It's burned him in the past, but he has not been as bad. Okay, he has not been as bad. I'm going to fix that. He has not been as bad as the Chicago Bears fans want to make out to believe. Okay, that's the thing. He has not been as bad as what Bears fans want to make it out to believe.
While Rob fixes our set, I will just say that on the second Daniel Jones rushing touchdown, that's a bad sign. I don't think you're going to win very many games when he has 2 rushing touchdowns on you. I felt that Eddie Jackson took a bad route to that ball, but maybe we're talking the difference between him scoring and him being tackled at the 2.
Sure.
But Daniel Jones has been known to give up the ball. He's been known to fumble and things like that. But you're right. Overall, Eddie Jackson really looking good. I think, having some other playmakers around has helped. But then again, 2 games in a row without Jaylon Johnson, you wonder what kind of difference he might have made, both in this game and obviously moving forward. So
this is really the explicit version for anyone who watches on YouTube because you got to see my butt.
All right. Segue? I guess that's a segue.
All right. What do you got for your
All right. Unfortunately, so I was writing these down during the game, and I wrote down one that I thought was debatable, and then it's very obvious now. Okay. So I don't think I'm going to fool anyone, just like you didn't really fool me.
Okay.
But it'll be in the discussion.
It's hard to fool us also just because we talk on a constant basis.
True. All right, so I got 2 truths and a lie out of the following 3 statements. The game will slow down for Justin Fields.
Okay.
Okay, that's one of my truths or lie.
I mean, he already said it's not fast, but okay.
Okay, well, I might have a different opinion than even he has on that. All right, my second statement is the hits principle works and is much needed by this team. And then, okay, I see your face over there. And my third statement, Velus Jones can walk in and immediately change the game for the Chicago Bears. So, Rob, I know the listeners are trying to figure out which one is the lie out of those 3. What do you think?
All right, so I already know, based off of conversation, plus you went to go tip your hand, that the Justin Fields comment is a truth for you, right? Like, I'm assuming that you believe the game will start to slow down for him, and we will see more production.
I would like to check in at the midway point of the season on that one. So you are correct. I have that as a truth. Okay. I think in today's game, there were a few plays where he was just a tick slow. One of them was on the sideline to Equinemius St. Brown.
ESB. I was thinking the
and
same play.
If he had thrown it just a split second earlier, it would have been a completion, I believe, with maybe inside the 5.
Definitely with inside the 10.
You know, and who knows what they would have done with that. You know, because they scored
3 times.
Well,
kicked
if they ran 3 times inside the 5, maybe they score a touchdown. And obviously, this was a game where all you got was 4 field goals. So,
well, see, there's the problem. They did have it within the 5, and on 3rd and 3, they ran it a stupid draw play. Still with the running back, I get it, not the quarterback, but a draw play. Put your fullback in, put him behind him, run the ball. What are you doing?
Oh, wow.
That's a hint at something that will come up later.
Okay, well, I didn't know I brought that kind of rage out of you. But that was just one example, and I wish I had written down a few more. Again, I keep saying I'm going to go back and rewatch these games, and then my life just gets way too busy. But if I give it a rewatch, I would guess that there are about 4 plays where it was just that split second that if he had made a different read a split second earlier, it's a different result. And 4 plays in the course of a game, and maybe you only end up making 3 of them because maybe the defense makes a great play or someone makes a drop.
Especially a game like this.
Exactly. 3 plays different in this game that are positive gains instead of an incompletion or a completion instead of a scramble that doesn't net the correct amount of yards. That can turn a game.
Yeah.
And so I do think that we'll check in at halfway point. I think you'll see better stats from him, which will be because he's, slowing the game down a bit. I think there's a lot he's thinking about. It's a new system. He even has to change where his feet go.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of a deal that is. But if he can just get out of his own head a little bit, I think you'll see that in the results of his play. So you're right. That was the truth. So my other 2 statements, you still got them?
Yeah. So
one's Velus Jones.
I'm gonna go with that. The Velus Jones one is a lie, but he did come in and impact the game. It's not for the Bears.
All right, you got me on a technicality. So I want to point this out. I wrote this way before that,
which I give you kudos for. By the way,
I wrote it when he took a kick return 3 yards deep in the end zone, and he wanted to bring it out. And prior to him being here, this was his first game. I said, guys, take that knee.
Yeah.
Let me slap 5 with somebody because we get to start at the 25. And he only ran it out to the 17 or 22, and he wasn't making that immediate impact. And then I realized it's unfair for me to expect that. He's not the next Devin Hester. Certainly not yet. I'd more compare him to Patterson with his build and all that.
Yeah.
But he's not that either. And you can't depend on him to be that right off the bat. So I do agree that is a lie. I'd love to be wrong, but you can't depend on him. But my bigger question, though, I was specifically writing that from the special team side of things. Where was he on offense?
I don't think I saw him in on a single play. I did look before we started the podcast, and I don't think Pro Football Reference updates their stuff that quickly.
Okay.
Because I didn't see any of his punt or kick return stats either. I don't recall seeing him.
So either he played limited number of offensive snaps and made zero impact, or he wasn't in there. And in either case, my question would be why.
Yeah. I mean, he might have been in there for like the last play when they did the 75.
Actually, I don't recall seeing him there, but that would have been a good time. But like we were talking again in the 3 games he missed about, well, what would Velus Jones do with a jet sweep or a bubble screen or something? And I get it. It's a 53-man roster. He's a rookie. It doesn't mean when Getsy said, oh, Velus Jones is playing, immediately he should be the key focal point of the offense. But it's a struggling offense. So you'd like to see they're trying everything at their disposal to try to make a big play. And he was absent.
And here's where I think Luke Getsy's not afraid to. And I know he's coming off injury, okay? But I almost wonder if he's not willing to play him over guys like Dante Pettis. ESB's had a good start to the year, I feel like, especially in comparison to what we've seen him in Green Bay. But is it because he doesn't block the way that those guys block? Because he loves the running game.
I knew that's where you were going, and I'm just going to point out one play. It was a bizarre play. St. Brown comes in motion, almost as if he was going to get a jet sweep, but the timing was a little off. And then he became like a lead blocker and missed a block.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, I know he notoriously is a good blocker, but that play was kind of ugly, and I think it only led to like a 1-yard gain. And if he hit that block, maybe you get the edge and get 6 or 7. But again, I just think it's too much to put on a rookie to all of a sudden think he's going to change the game in special teams. He's going to change the game in offense. And the only way he changed it today was in special teams, and it was a negative change. So that only leaves one more. Hits principle works and is much needed by this team. So I'm going to say that's true because this team that is deficient in talent is 2-2 after playing, some teams that either were in the playoffs or I don't think the Giants, I think they're pretenders. They're 3-1, but this team needs to play close to flawless football to get wins at this point. And the emphasis on hits is there. We saw some dumb penalty. I don't know if the Kyler Gordon pass interference is dumb or he was just beat.
Yeah.
But that one kind of tipped the scales. If you look at penalty yards for the Bears, there's that.
Gordon might need to be the guy I look at the All-22 also.
Oh,
he has not been living up to my expectation.
But is that also the same thing we're saying about Velus? You're going to just take a guy who's a rookie and just depend on him to be like your absolute corner, slot corner throughout the whole game? And
I don't know.
Maybe that's too much to ask.
We saw Jaquan Brisker for the first 3 games look awesome. He had a rough game today. This was his worst game.
Better second half than first half, though.
But he rebounded. That's what I was going to say. He rebounded. So I don't know. I feel like when you draft a guy in the second round like that, you kind of need Gordon to come in and step up, especially when George Pickens was available.
Oh, I see what you did there. So you're right, though. Second round pick, and you didn't have a first. And I do think teams are depending on their first round picks. So Bears have to depend on their second round picks.
I agree with you, though. I do think the hits principle is why they're 2-2, right? They're a very, very well-disciplined team. Even we keep talking about it. They don't have a lot of pre-snap penalties. We saw a neutral zone infraction or an encroachment penalty today from
Quinn, I think.
No, it was 93. I'm blanking on who
Justin
that is.
Jones.
Justin Jones.
Okay.
We saw that happen today. We've seen a couple false starts, but you don't see the penalties that we saw under the mat. How many times did the Chicago Bears run a great play and then follow it up with a false start penalty or a holding penalty and something to just back them up and just suck all the energy out of it?
It hasn't been that. It's just been a lack of making big plays.
But I think those will come. We have to understand. We have to remember it. As angry as I am, right? It's a brand new team. Like, so many things are moving. They don't have the talent at this point, but they're putting in a new scheme. I mean, we're building for 2023. They're building for 2023. I'm not a part of the team. That's one of my biggest issues. They are building. I'll try to
get better at that too.
They're building for the 2023 season. We have to be patient. As angry as we're going to get from a week-to-week standpoint, because we live in a micro world and not a macro world. Did I do that right? I think so. We like to focus in on the now and the recency bias versus looking at the big picture of everything. And we got to give them time. I will still admit, Brian Daboll is going to looks to be a better coach than Matt Eberflus.
I don't like to play those games. He'd be coaching a totally different roster. So
yes, I know. I just like to
But
fuel to
but
the
I
fire.
mean, they're at 2-2. Some people out there think they're only going to win 3 the whole year. You and I both have them winning 8. So they're about at the pace that we have them at. You had them at 3-1 at this point. I had them at 2-2. Totally different 2-2. But I think it'd be great to check in at the halfway point and see, is progress being made? Is growth happening? They have to be one of the youngest teams in the NFL. I don't know the age breakdown.
They are.
Not many veterans. So
I think the Jets are number 1, but they're up there.
all right. So that was 2 truths and a lie. We'll check back in mid-season with that. But why don't we shift to the final part of the show here with our what the moments.
Yeah, so my what the moment, I already listed it out there. Why are you running a draw play on 3rd and 3 when you're inside the 5 just to kick a field goal? Stop playing for the field goal and the conservativeness. Like, go for the win. Go for the jugular for once. I want to see it. I'm not seeing it. I need the fuel to add to my fire. I'll bring you the fire. I'm bringing it right now. I'm so frustrated with it. At least put a damn fullback in front of him, like something, or run to the outside where it's been working against the Giants. Like that type of play calling, the conservative play calling, especially in the red zone. That's my what the. Luke Getzey, wake up.
All right.
Wake up.
So we're going to need to check Rob's blood pressure at the end of the show today. He's getting a little hot here. I have a what the, and then I'm going to temper it, though, because this guy ended up injured. So I don't know when that injury happened. But on the Justin Fields fumble, which his arm was coming forward, but a very immediate replay shows the ball was already out of his hand when his arm comes forward. So that was a fumble. But Whitehair's just kind of standing there. And the Giant player goes for the ball and recovers. So my what the is to Whitehair. Why you're not going for that ball? Hits principle, play smart. You don't hear a whistle, you jump on the ball.
Yeah, it was a loaf.
So that would be a loaf. But again, he ended up being out hurt, and it sounds like a serious injury. I don't know at that point in the game if he already was feeling a tweak or who knows. But that was my what, one of my what does. Back to you for another one.
I don't have any more. I'm done.
All right, I have a whole bunch of them, but I'll just give.
I mean, I could have kept going, but that was my main focus.
All right.
Was that one right there.
I have one then. I'll do at least one more, and then maybe we can decide if we want to be done. But huge play in the game, and we were giving this guy all the roses last week. But I have a what the on a huge 3rd down play. Roquan Smith one-on-one with Tyrod Taylor. Good move by Taylor. Really good move.
You got to give him credit.
Yeah, I give him credit, but Roquan's got to make that play.
If you want to be the highest paid linebacker in the NFL, you have to make that play.
Because look, fact of the matter is he gets juked. This was deep in their territory at the time. So it's a 3rd down. They'd be punching to the Bears. They end up coming away with point. I think they came away with points.
I think they got 3 on that.
They took time off the clock and scored 3 points. So that play right there, to me, costs you almost as much as the muff punt. I mean, the muff punt's going to stand out, but that play hurt a whole lot too. So my what the goes to Roquan Smith getting juked by Tyrod Taylor.
I can't blame you. I mean, I knew exactly where you were going as soon as you said it. So.
And then my other one, it's a bonus. That last play, you had already checked out. But that last play had a whole lot of what the. Some of those had to be forward laterals, no flag, no whistle, nothing. It's just ugliness.
Speaking of, so red zone, I hate you. I literally tweet out, I'm done with this game. The game's over after the muff punt. I'm going to go turn on red zone. I go to red zone, and they put on the Bears game.
You got to show that play. The only thing missing was the Stanford band.
Oh, it was bad.
And, forward progress and touchdowns. And I think at least 2 of the laterals were forward, but I don't know.
They looked like they would. I mean, they were chucking it back pretty far. And by the way, Fields passing backwards on those plays, that was fantastic.
If he can do it forward now, that'd be an adjustment. He took a hit too on that.
Oh, I didn't see the hit.
Yeah. So, all right.
So just briefly, we're going to wrap up here, but I just want to say, okay, so next week the Chicago Bears are facing the Minnesota Vikings. It's definitely an important game for them, right? It's an in-division game, NFC North. They've only played one other one and got beat bad by the Packers.
Vikings are coming from London.
The Vikings are coming from London, and they look like they're beatable. Okay, they just
so do the Bears.
barely beat the The New Orleans Saints
with their backup QB,
Andy Dalton, by the way. But one thing that Andy Dalton has that Justin Fields doesn't have is Chris Olave. He had him in college. If only that connection could have paired. It's going to be an interesting matchup. I still think Minnesota is going to win. That's who I had projected to win, but they do look beatable.
I'd have to go back and see. I have the Bears splitting with the Vikings this year, and I think I gave them this because of the awkwardness of the London travel. I thought in the past, if you played London, your bye week followed. Maybe I'm wrong about that. It seems like it would make sense. But hey, take advantage of whatever you can take advantage of. I don't know how much of an advantage that actually is. If they win, we'll say it was.
Yeah, exactly.
But who knows? The Bears, again, we're going to say this so many times, Rob. They're not the better team going into it.
We didn't touch on this, but you wanted to bring it up, and it kind of segues right into that. They're coming from a huge trip, right, from overseas. The jet lag is going to be big. Fourth quarter. You had mentioned this pre-game, right? Pre-show.
So one of the things I was gonna consider as a truth or a lie, and I think it's the truth. I heard an interview this week with Patrick saying that Eberflus coming into training camp said, "Bring your running shoes, boys." And the Bears are apparently a very well-conditioned team. You keep hearing this narrative. They haven't given up any touchdowns. It's said in the whole second half of any games, but definitely in the fourth quarter.
It didn't happen today.
Okay, so if that's something that the Bears can seize as an advantage, they look like a team that hopefully late in games is going to be equipped to make key plays, both on offense and defense. And you're definitely seeing it from the defense so far through 4 games.
I'm going to tell you, though, the one thing that needs to happen for the Bears to have any chance of beating the Vikings, Jalen Johnson needs to come back.
You're in my head.
If you got Kyler Gordon covering Justin Jefferson, watch out. You better – Justin Jefferson owners in fantasy football, you're going to have a big week.
Hey, we don't want to be hypocrites. We're not rushing anyone back from injuries if they're not ready, but he's missed 2 weeks, so maybe that's what he needed to be ready. But You're right. Jalen Johnson playing against Minnesota will definitely help the Bears' odds, whatever they are. Probably pretty low, but
pretty low.
We'll see.
If I had to guess, they're going to probably open up like -7.
We also should look into maybe having a gambler betting section.
Yeah.
But I think that would be better for like a midweek.
I
don't know if we can see if Jeremy's available to do a short with us or something.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, Hallis Huddle fans, thank you for your listening. Go Bears.
Go Bears. Bear down.